right, so welcome to pesticide history, chemistry, and formulations. Uh, it's one of my favorite topics to discuss, other than the math when it comes to pesticides, is just for the simple fact I love the history of it. So um, it's some fun facts. It's some good information, and to think back to um, almost prehistoric times that they, started using some pesticides. So, welcome, Travis. Go ahead and accept the invitation to panelists. Sydney Johnson, Mr. Murphy as well. And let's get started. So, our objectives for the course, we're going to learn the history and the reason for the creation of pesticides. And guys, I'll be first to admit, I am a big proponent of pesticides. We couldn't feed the world if we didn't use them. And pesticides can be dangerous. They are dangerous, but they are dangerous in the hands of the wrong people. They're dangerous in the hands of unlicensed contractors out there, just mixing whatever, not reading the label. I call them yahoos, where they're out there doing things that give us a bad name. But in all actuality, the green industry, the home and landscape side of the house, we're probably one of the lower end use of pesticides. It's government and farming that uses more pesticides than anything. But we'll learn the reasons for it. All right. Welcome, Jared. Go ahead and accept the invitation to panelists. That'll put you on the roster. Then we'll learn the different forms that pesticides come in, basically talking about the formulations. And then we'll learn the basic chemistry behind these pesticides. So those are the three objectives of the course. And so basically our pesticides that we have, it is a tool that we have in our toolbox. It is anything that is used to kill or control pests. People say, what about, home remedies? Well, if it's really anything that is used to kill that pest or to control it. We first got to understand what a pest is, and that's really any plant, animal that's listed here, to include insects, mites, weeds, aquatic plants, diseases of plants that are caused by fungi, bacteria, or viruses, nematodes, snails, slugs, rodents, birds, flies, mosquitoes, cockroaches, moths, beetles, caterpillars, etc. Really anything that is where it is not wanted. So really any of this stuff right here that we've listed is something that we don't want anytime. But there are some instances where there is a living organism that can be a welcomed guest in one situation and still be a pest in another situation. And usually that comes in the form of a plant. I always use the example of Bermuda grass. We're here in the cool season transition zone. So 99% of our customers are cool season clients. And Bermuda grass is a pain. But when we go play golf, we want to be on Bermuda grass. We play baseball or watch the high school football games on Friday night. We love the Bermuda grass, but we just don't want it encroaching in our tall fescue lawns. So there's a good example of where something can be both a pest and a welcomed guest. But any of these things up here, except maybe a bird, we love watching the birds, but they can be a pest in certain situations. But the U.S. pesticide market is the world's largest, representing 34% of the total. And that is because, guys, we do feed the world. And that, that should be something to be proud of. The sad thing when we look at that is why is there still, children and people here going hungry. That bothers me. And that's something that weighs heavily on my heart, is that we are in the world of abundance. The United States, we are an abundant country. We have more than we could ever hope for when it comes to food and really anything that we want, but yet we still have U.S. citizens going hungry. We shouldn't have that issue, but we do. But just remember, take a note that pesticides are a chemical tool. When we are implementing an integrated pest management program, which we try to eliminate the use of a pesticide, it doesn't necessarily knock it out. It would be the last option. It would be that last tool that we would pull out of the toolbox in an IPM program, which is a lot easier to use when it comes to forestry and even agriculture. Lawn care, it's a little bit hard, but you can do other measures in an IPM plan for lawn care. So more than 50 U.S. firms manufacture pesticides, with 14 firms accounting for about 85% of all pesticide sales. Now, that number's probably increased here in the last year or so. There's always going to be new companies coming out in pretty much any industry. But the 14 major firms, they're producing, right at 85%. So these are the big players. These are the Monsantos and all your other big chemical companies. The agricultural market consumes only 72% of the pesticides sold in the U.S. They say only. I mean, that's 3/4 of it, right? Industry and government, 21%. And then home and garden, we're only at 7%. So think about it. But we get blamed for a lot of the mishaps that happen. Clients see a backpack sprayer on the truck. Some of them freak out. We've all had that customer that is saying absolutely no pesticides on their property whatsoever. Can they have a happy home? Can they have a pest-free home? More than likely not. It's just not going to happen. And I find it strange that you've got your homeowners that will allow your structural guys to, come in and spray for insects inside the house and everything else like that. But they freak out when we're spraying Roundup for weeds in their yard. But they'll allow the structural guys to come in and get rid of the insects. They're a little bit more scared of those creepy crawlers, but they'd much rather for us to pull weeds by hand. Homeowners are going to pay more for pesticides than industry or ag, mainly due to the specialized formulas needed in smaller quantities, while agriculture pays the least. Of course, I mean, they're at 75% of the market and they're buying in bulk. And then homeowners are, pretty much buying these ready-to-use formulations right off the shelf in like a Windex bottle or already a little hand pump that's ready to go. They're using the ready-to-use. Homeowners, however, cannot go and purchase a restricted use pesticide, even for their own property, without having a pesticide license. Our license, guys, our pesticide license is more strict than some of the other trades license, because a homeowner can pull a building permit and build their own house. They can pull the electrical permit. Now, the electrical inspectors may ask them some questions, make sure they know a little bit of stuff, but they don't have to have a license. They can pull their own plumbing permit. They can pull their own HVAC permit. The government, the state of North Carolina, does not stop an individual from building their own house or doing any other work on it. However, the state of North Carolina does regulate that pesticide license and states that no homeowner can buy a restricted use pesticide and apply it to their own property. It's just because it's a little dangerous. They need to have the training. They need to have that certification and be able to purchase that restricted use. It's got to be logged in a logbook. So your dealers will watch that very, very strictly, because they could lose their dealer license if they were to sell it to somebody that does not have a license. The damage of pests. The world's main source of food is plants. We might not think that because we're steak eaters and we love meat. But these plants have got to be grown so that the beef cattle can eat the plants. These plants, grasses, all of our grains and everything, they are susceptible to 80 to 100,000 diseases. And to think of that number, that is absolutely crazy. There's 100 and some thousand diseases that can affect plants that is in our food source, that is in that food chain. Plants also compete with 30,000 different species of weeds, some of which can cause serious economic losses. That is crazy as well. But this number right here blows my mind more than anything else. There are around 800,000 species of insects, and about 10,000 of those are plant eaters, leading to a loss of crops around the world. So that is the bigger problem. But you think 10,000 insects in the out west where we're growing most of our agriculture, 30,000 different weeds, and up to 100,000 diseases. No wonder it just still amazes me that we can still produce enough with everything like this going on. However, around 1/3 of the world's food crops are destroyed by pests during growth, harvesting, and storage. So we're still going to lose about 1/3 of it. And yet we still have an abundance of food. Still not enough to feed the homeless and everything like that, which, like I said, it breaks my heart. And why school lunches cannot be free. I know I'm getting off on a soapbox, but we have kids that go to public schools, which is a free school. We have kids that ride the bus, which is free transportation. With the amount of food that we grow here in the United States, why is every lunch not free for every child going to school? I will never understand that, because we sure do waste a lot of food. Mm-hmm. And still part of it is gone by pests. Even with the use of pesticides, ladies and gentlemen, the United States will still lose another 30% of its crops due to pests. Is that not crazy? So we're getting around to that 40 to 50% mark. If we didn't have pesticides, look how much more we would lose. Look how much more we would lose. Guys, pesticides, we have to have it. Pesticides isn't the enemy. It's applying the incorrect amount that's the enemy. It's the applicators who is the enemy. If you put the correct amount out, give the correct amount of nitrogen, give the correct amount of water. And I know farming is worse than going to Vegas. You take a chance, and it's weather dependent. But if we were to bring that into the lawn care scenario, putting out the correct amount, feeding the turf grass the correct amount, and watering it the correct amount, that turf grass is going to do more for the environment than that pesticide that's put on the turf grass. Weeds can take away moisture and nutrients from the soil. They can shade crop plants, and they can hinder normal growth. They can also contaminate grains with seeds poisonous to humans and animals. Again, remember that plants are the major food source here in the United States and the world. Like every animal that we eat is going to eat plants. Herbicides have also allowed the number of U.S. workers who work on farms to drop from around 12% to 3% of the population. Now, this is a little bit older data than today, but really there was that many. 12% of the population did work on farms because we didn't have the use of herbicide. They were manual weed pullers, and they would comb the fields and do that. Now, it's probably hard for us to imagine that here in North Carolina, but you go out west, you go to California, and you go out to the plains, and you see these large agricultural fields. You know why? My associate dean at the college, I love talking to him because he's from Nebraska. And so his parents were huge corn farmers, the Nebraska corn huskers. And he said, Eric, literally, he said, my dad during the summer months when we were out of school would drop me off at one end of the field with a machete. We had to walk through every row of corn and cut down the sunflowers, which was a pest out there in Nebraska. We grow sunflowers here just so people can, cut the flowers off and eat the sunflower seeds. They were going through with a machete, cutting down all of the sunflowers because they didn't want it in the corn. Organic farming, even organic lawn care. And I'll tell you a little story about that. I was fortunate enough to sit in a class with the turfgrass professors down at NC State. And they did a presentation on organic lawn care. And basically the title of it was like, does true organic lawn care exist? And the answer is yes. But I loved hearing it from the guys at NC State. They're like, you have two customers side by side, one that wants the traditional lawn care program, using chemicals and fertilize and everything like that. And then you have the client next door that doesn't want you spraying any chemicals and wants you to use only organic fertilizers in their yard, are going to be in competition for each other. The traditional lawn care customer, though, is going to be happier, and they're going to have more money in their pocket because the organic stuff just costs too much, and it's not going to do the trick like the traditional program. So it was good to actually hear that. But it does exist. Organic lawn care exists. Organic farming exists. But again, yields aren't going to be as high. You're just not going to make as much money. You're going to spend more money. Here at our strawberry farm, people always ask us, Eric, are your strawberries organic? And the answer is no, because we haven't paid to get them labeled organic. But do you think we're growing them the way that we should? Absolutely. We are growing them as if we were going to get them certified organic. The problem is people already complain about the price of what we sell a gallon of strawberries for. We would almost have to double it just in fees and money that we would owe to the government just to get them to certify them organic. So when it comes to organic farming, we have conventional farmers using synthetic chemical products, but organic farmers use naturally occurring chemicals such as rock phosphate, limestone manures, nitrogen for leguminous plants, and substances with pesticidal properties that are produced by certain plants. Well, a lot of our pesticides do come from plants. They're derivatives of them. Yeah, I think about the good old, one of my favorite trees, and it's just slipped my mind. But it produces its own natural pre-emergent herbicide that we are actually taking and producing our own pre-emergence. So these plants are super smart. They're able to produce their own pesticides to protect their areas. But organic is often thought to mean natural, but this is not necessarily true. Now, when we hear the word organic, people are automatically thinking like, no chemicals or anything like that. But the true definition of organic means anything that contains carbon. And so when you start looking at the chemicals that we do use, especially in lawn care, a lot of them do contain carbon, the carbon atoms and stuff. So like traditionally, can if somebody asks you, are you using organic products? Yeah, because my products contain carbon. Organic and conventionally grown plants both absorb most of all their nutrients from the soil in an inorganic form. And both our conventional and organic farmers are largely powered by fossil fuel. But the production of synthetic fertilizers and pesticides require more energy to be used by the conventional farmers. And so, as always, organic farming will lead to lower crop yields than the conventional farming. I'd much rather buy locally than to buy organically. I I want to go to my neighbor's backyard farm and buy my vegetables, purchase my eggs. We even have some friends of the family that are, selling chicken meat, selling beef, milk, cheese, everything right from their farm. And to me, that is the closest thing to being organic as it comes, but it's buying local. We have fruit and vegetables that are grown in California that get certified organic, but then they ship them across the United States. Well, there's nothing sustainable or organic about that, as much diesel fuel is being burnt to ship them across the country. I'd much rather buy locally that's not certified organic and take care of my neighbors and prevent all of that from being shipped across the country. Um, so organic is a big word. People are going to ask everything about it. That is our number one question. Strawberry patch, are your plants, you know, organic? No, but they are environmentally sound. We grow them in a manner to get them organic, but we do that to keep the price down. We use no chemicals. We use nothing on it. We touch every plant. We hand weed. We do all that. Chris, you got a question?
Yes, you said something about they didn't pay to get it labeled organic. Do these companies have to actually pay to have their product labeled organic? So it's like
Yeah.
a money racketing thing? And that
Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
100%. Mr. Johnson,
That's
you got
wild.
tell us about it, Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it takes more than 5 years to get a farm certified as organic, and in
Yep.
that process, that the farm, the fields, and everything can have no additives, no pesticides, or nothing. Anything that's used to dispose of plants is ground up and put back in the ground to help be a natural pesticide, so to speak. But um, it takes a long time and a lot of work, and you lose a field for a couple of years until it becomes certified organic.
Yeah. Yep. And when you're feeding a family and that is your main income, it's hard to do that.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. You can't do it. So, um, again, I think it's yeah, and it goes back to the word sustainable. You know, when I was in college, my professors actually had a landscape architecture firm called Sustainable Landscape Design Studios. And, they're like, we're using the word sustainable because that's what everybody wants to hear. But they would tell us, in all actuality, people in the green industry, farmers, landscapers, you know, we want to take care of Mother Nature. We are sustainable. What we do in the green industry helps keep, you know, Mother Nature on track and everything like that. So we have that green thumb, and we're gonna do the right thing. Um, and yes, are we going to have to use pesticides? 100%. You know, these insects would take over the world if we didn't. I mean, and there's natural pest controls that do it, but an original pair of flies, guys, the common house fly, boy meets girl in the fly world, lays 600 eggs in 6 days, and then those 600 lay eggs in 6 days. You do the number on your phone real quick. We would have an entire earth covered in flies in one summer if we didn't have natural pest controls and the use of insecticides. So these things can get out of control, and we just got to do the right thing. And it comes to the education part of it. It comes to reading the label, calibrating your equipment, and doing the math calculations and only using what you need to put it. Because if you're putting out only what you need, it's going to kill the target pest and it's going to be gone. It's killed the pest, and it's none of it's extra laying around on the ground. So let's move into a little bit of the history of the pesticides. Over the years, crops have been decimated by disease and insects, which led to famine in many parts of the world. It has. Animal and human diseases have been carried and spread by insects. Some examples including the equine encephalitis. I always get tongue-tied with that word. You know, my wife was kidding with me about it the other day, and she's like, "No, say it like this," but for some reason it tongue-ties me. But the bubonic plague, malaria, leads to millions of deaths always. And why are we still having people die with malaria? I mean, we have you know, I mean, we have the preventative means for that. But it happens in these third world countries where they're also starving to death. So it's just a sad, sad situation, and we've got to get rid of those insects. And you know, the number one natural pest control for the mosquito is a bat. You know, bat houses should be planted or built in every single neighborhood. You know, one bat house, they said, could keep an area of 40 homes in that neighborhood, you know, based on, you know, half-acre lots or whatever, keep it free of the mosquitoes. They would eat enough of the mosquitoes that we wouldn't have an issue. But people are a little bit afraid of bats. So you gotta pick your or kick your fear to the curb, because bats do a lot of good things for us, and they want nothing to do with us. But movies have depicted them as being the Draculas and spreading all this other disease and stuff. But Homer the Greek poet is actually the first person to have been recorded referring to the use of a pesticide in about 1000 BC. So before our Lord and Savior was here, when he mentioned burning sulfur to fumigate homes. So they were doing that to get rid of these insects that were inside of home. But it wasn't until the mid-19th century that pests were successfully controlled with chemicals. So we're coming up on 75 plus years here. Pesticides should be used when the pests are the most vulnerable. And so the number one reason we have a pesticide failure is misidentification of the pest. So when we start learning these pests, then we learn that biology of the pest, then we can apply the pesticide when they're going to be more susceptible to it and kill the target pest. We don't want to make an application and nothing happen to the pest. It goes back to studying it. Entomology, you know, the study of insects. We need to learn what these guys are. So, benefit versus risk. Integrated pest management, or IPM, will combine the best of all methods of pest control to address the pest problem and cause the least economic injury due to pests. Now, IPM was first created for agriculture, and like I said, it can be implemented into the landscape and even turf grass. And it doesn't necessarily discontinue the use of pesticides. It just puts it at the last resort. We would use it only when necessary. Same thing like, you know, getting rid of Bermuda grass in tall fescue. Shade is going to kill it. Like, I mean, it just is. The old common Bermuda, if you were to, you know, mow your turf grass, your tall fescue at 4 inches, 4.5 inches, which, you know, that needs some convincing to the client, they're not going to have problems with weeds, and definitely not Bermuda grass. That's how integrated pest management is used. There's also grass seed that's been encapsulated with a fungus to kill turf insects. So that is ways that we are using actual natural controls, being a fungus, to kill these turf insects. Pesticides can leave residue on foods and have unintentional effects on birds, fish, wildlife, pollinating insects, and more. Now, this residue that has happened and how it remains in the environment is one way that the EPA determines whether or not it should be a restricted use pesticide or general use pesticide. If it's got a long life in the environment, it's more than likely going to be a RUP, the restricted use pesticide. Pesticides increase productivity and drastically increase the amount of food that farmers can produce, while also saving 1/3 of the total crops. So remember, we lose that third always, and pesticides save another third. So if we weren't using it, we would be right at the 45% mark of all food being harvested and used for consumption. Food and illnesses due to an increase in population over the years, and like I said, the world, we're getting more and more populated every single year. There is pressure to increase agricultural production to meet the needs, since there's roughly 56% of the world population that's undernourished. Again, think of that number. We have an abundance here in the United States, and we are the ones like exporting a lot of our food, but still 50% of the world is undernourished. Sad situation. Higher food production rates in the U.S. compared to other countries can be attributed to increased crop varieties, increased size and capacity of farming equipment, and the use of fertilizers and pesticides. And it has a lot to do with land grant universities that, started popping up, Civil War area. We had to have these colleges that were, studying agriculture and putting this information out to the general public. Here in North Carolina, it's NC State and North Carolina A&T State University. So we have two land grant universities here that are required to have that School of Ag and have home economics and have the research that's going on, but more importantly, to put that research out to the general public. And that's why we have such good agriculture here in the U.S. Millions of people are killed or disabled annually due to insect-borne illnesses. Just like we were talking about the malaria. We shouldn't have to hear of that, but it's going to happen. And then economic losses of around $90 billion annually are due to insects, disease, weeds, and a typo there, but like the rodents and stuff. But 90 billion, that number I'm sure has increased since I built this PowerPoint. We're probably well into the 100 billions. But think about it. Look how many insects, 10,000 that are at least plant eaters, up to 100,000 diseases, 30,000 weeds that can destroy our crops and destroy even forestry. Think what could happen to, the price of lumber is sky high now anyway, but think about it if they were to be attacked by an insect, and we lose a lot of our forest. Look what that would do to construction costs. With our chemistry, everything is composed of chemical elements, and the smallest part of an element is called an atom. Elements are pure, and all atoms in the element are alike. It's not possible to change an element. Some examples are oxygen and nitrogen. Elements are often represented by their chemical symbol. Oftentimes, this is one or two letters from the element name, and then a compound is a combination of two or more elements, such as water, H2O, salt, and ACl. So, but nitrogen, a big thing that we use in agriculture and lawn care, everything, is an element. When different atoms combine, they form the molecule, which is the smallest part of the compound. Chemical compounds are formed when two or more elements join together by their chemical bonds. And only 21 of the more than 105 chemical elements are used to produce pesticides. Almost all pesticides are organic compounds, meaning they contain carbon. Again, almost all pesticides are organic compounds. So are you using organic products? Does that mean your lawn care program is organic? Well, technically you could call it that, to be honest with you, because you're using the correct definition of what organic means. But those with no carbon are called inorganic compounds. And so again, that opens up a can of worms when you start talking that with a client. However, if you do bring the introduction of integrated pest management to some of your clients, they're going to want to listen, and they're going to want to participate in a program like that. The one thing I like about it is you get paid to show up. You get paid to do a site visit and actually check it, because the main thing when it comes to IPM is that you got to be on site. You've got to take notes. You got to see what's going on and identify that pest and identify it before it becomes a major problem. And they pay you for it. A chemical formula is the printed description of a molecule in a chemical compound, but the structural formula uses lines and symbols to visually show the bond structure between the atoms. And I should have put some pictures up for this to actually show that, but I was in a typing mood for this one. But stereo formulas are the three-dimensional chemical formulas. They allow the reader to visually see the spatial configuration of the molecules. That kind of reminds me of, like, when they first discovered like DNA, just that 3D model of it. So what are the pesticides? Again, pesticide is a generalized name. It means killer of pests. So words ending in "side" are different classes of pesticides, like our herbicides or our fungicides. They are legally classified as economic poisons, and more state and federal laws are defined as any substance used for controlling, preventing, destroying, repelling, or mitigating any pest. And so a lot of farmers are going to use diesel fuel to kill weeds, right? That diesel fuel becomes a pesticide then. Doesn't mean that it's illegal to do that. They shouldn't do that, but it would be termed a pesticide there because they are killing weeds. Toxicity of a pesticide is given the LD50, lethal dose 50, expressed as the milligrams of toxin per kilogram of body weight, the dose that will kill 50% of the test animals. The bad thing about LD50, guys, I mean, they're not testing humans, right? They're testing lab rats and stuff. So how does that really relate over to humans, especially like coming to, body weight and stuff like that? But it does give a close representation of how toxic it could be to humans. When it comes to naming pesticides, the common name for a compound is selected by the appropriate professional scientific society and approved by the American National Standards Institute and the International Organization for Standardizations. For example, insecticides are selected by the Entomological Society of America. They're the ones helping name that. The proprietary name or brand name is chosen by the manufacturer or formulator. There can be different brand names given to a similar pesticide with different formulations. We all hear about Roundup. People get nervous when they hear that. And so we have clients that say absolutely no Roundup. We can't use it on their property. And that's fine. They love getting out on Saturday mornings and pulling weeds. That's fine. But we're not going to pull weeds. When it comes to Roundup, I honestly don't think we will ever get rid of glyphosate. I think it will always be used. It's the word Roundup, which is the trade name, the brand name that people recognize. If you're saying, "Hey, I'm spraying glyphosate," you're a lot of homeowners be like, "Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, just don't use that Roundup stuff on my yard." They don't know what it is that they're talking about. So it'll probably be changed in some way in a different formulation and just given a different brand name. And because pesticides are used worldwide, they need to easily be identified just like our pests. And so several scientific organizations are involved in their naming. And there are a lot of chemical companies in the world. And so that's why they got all these numbers on the actual container. Where it's manufactured at in case there is a mishap or it is poisoning other animals that it was not intended for. they can stop the production and have recalls for it. Manufacturing the pesticides. A pesticide is manufactured in its most pure form and then formulated, meaning it is processed into a usable form for direct application or dilution to then be applied. Formulation is the processing of a pesticidal compound by any method that will improve its properties of storage, handling, application, effectiveness, or safety. This is normally the commercial preparation of the product prior to actual use. Prices of pesticides largely depend on the type of formulation, with the highest being the pressurized aerosol. And we tend not to use that in lawn care. We put out a lot of granulars and we put out a lot of liquids. So, pesticides are getting very, very expensive. And so you want to make sure you've got them locked in your, in the bed of your truck. You don't want them in the front seat, but get some type of lock box that's mounted to the truck, because these chemicals are expensive and we don't want them to end up in the hands of the wrong person. With formulations, traditionally pesticides are applied as water sprays, water suspensions, oil sprays, dust, granulars, and more than 75% of all pesticides are sprays. Emulsified concentrates or concentrated oil solutions of technical grade pesticides with enough emulsifier to make it easy to mix with water and instantly use. The emulsifiers cause the oils to completely disperse in the water, and so if a precipitate does form, more emulsifier can be added to the concentrate. Wettable powders, which we use all the time, are concentrated powder with a wetting agent that can be mixed with water and then sprayed. And many insecticides for gardens are found in this form because it's unlikely to burn the actual plant leaves. Water-soluble powders, SPs, are made from water-soluble solids and dissolve in water immediately without needing to be mixed. Oil solutions are ready to use and are used directly on pests. They contain no dust diluent, emulsifier, or wetting agent. Soluble pellets are convenient but not very effective and do not provide an even distribution. Flowables or sprayables suspensions are a pudding-like mix that can be combined with water, but it does not settle to the bottom of a sprayer. And since it is thicker, it is more likely to stay on target with where it is sprayed instead of blowing around. Ultra-low volume concentrates, ULVs, are available only for commercial use. They are the product in its original form and has been dissolved in minimum solvent. They are dispersed in a very fine spray. Then we have our fogging concentrates. They are sold for public health use to get rid of pests such as flies and mosquitoes, and by generating droplets of that pesticide. Dusts are the easiest to produce and apply, but they are the least effective because they aren't likely to stay on the foliage unless it is wet. And I don't like putting them out because, the chances of getting in your eyes and mouths a lot more, even, wearing your PPE, because that dust is going to get on everything else. And then when you take it off, you can still have it. To produce an aerosol, the active ingredient must be soluble in petroleum solvent that is in its pressurized condition. When the aerosol is used, the petroleum solvent evaporates quickly and leaves microscopic drops of the pesticide in the air. And since these drops are left in the air, it is advised that the user inhale as little as possible when in the spray-in area. Aerosols are best used on flying or crawling insects. Some can be set into a locked position to continue spraying until the container empties. And then our granular pesticides are small pellet size and can be used any time of the day, since there's not a worry about them drifting due to winds as they are applied. They're often used when planting to help protect the roots. And fumigants are plastic strips and pet collars that are full of an insecticide. It slowly works to the surface of the material and evaporates slowly. Impregnated materials can be used to contain different pesticides that can be used to touch weeds or ward off certain insects. Baits can be used to kill pests by bringing them in with something they enjoy, but incorporating small amounts of toxic pesticides. And then our slow release insecticides can cause the effectiveness of chemicals to last 2 to 4 times longer than any other forms of insecticides. And so that wraps up our slide deck. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the share and bring everybody over. Let's see. So the share is stopped. All right. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
I have one.
Yes, sir.
Do you think that the Roundup just got a bad rap because it's one of the most widely used pesticides on the market, and people, the homeowners, can get a hold of it, and when they get a hold of it, they're not using their PPE. I mean, I've seen them out in like flip-flops and, just shorts and whatnot, and so then they get more chance to get more of that product on them, the chemical, and it
True.
absorbs, and there's a higher chance that something bad could come of that.
They do.
You get
I mean, you're 100% right. Again, this is the unlicensed homeowner that doesn't read the label, that doesn't realize that they do need to have long pants and, waterproof boots. They're letting their little kids follow behind them. It's very similar to riding a lawnmower. I've never held one of my kids as a baby on a lawnmower because I just know the dangers of it. But you're right. Yeah, barefoot. But I've seen landscapers do the same thing, spraying with flip-flops and shorts on, absolutely crazy that they would attempt to do it, but it's what happens, man. And then they see the attorneys have got hold of it now. So it's all over the news. I mean, you can't watch a TV show at night without, hey, have you been exposed to Roundup or mesothelioma, from the shipyards and stuff. So, but is it dangerous? Yes. I mean, it can be. I just don't think, like my dad died with cancer. He's been a farmer and landscaper his whole life. My dad never used PPE. Never. I mean, he was from the old school days, and they sprayed more dangerous stuff than we ever do now in lawn care. I mean, they were just spraying all kinds of stuff, and I won't touch the stuff without making sure I'm covered up. But yes, sir, Mr. White.
Oh, that was all. That was all.
Oh, yeah, Thomas. Yeah, I think your mic is off. We can see you. You can type it in the chat box. Let's see. If you can see that, Thomas, you can type in there or. Mr. Good, are you with Good Tree Service?
Yeah, Dad finally retired,
Okay.
but I just work by myself. I just do mostly maintenance. I do a little landscaping, but nothing as big as, him and Alton did.
Gotcha. Okay. So you in the Kernersville area or Walkertown?
Yeah, I'm still working mostly in Kernersville and Winston, but
Okay.
yeah, we're out of Kernersville for sure.
Okay. Our minister used to work, I guess, for your dad or with your dad, Darren Osborne.
Yeah, that sounds familiar. It's been a while back, but yeah, that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. He talks about Good tree service all the time, man. So that's cool. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, Thomas, are inorganic more effective than organic products? In my personal opinion, yes. You're going to get better results and you're going to spend less money. It's just the way it is. But there are the clients that are willing to pay for it. So it's just getting to know, which client, if a client wants us to use all organic products and do it, we'll charge them the money and just let them know that they're probably going to be a lot less happier than their neighbors who are using inorganic products. Cool deal. Mr. McGee, I've seen you've been on the webinars before. Or do you come to some of the seminars?
I have not.
Are you?
I'm out of Wilmington, just trying to get,
Okay.
I think I got to get 4 or 5 more hours up for the year's up. So just
Gotcha.
try to pay my dues, man.
Yeah. 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 Mr. Murphy, it's been a while since I've seen you. Good to see you again.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yes,
I
sir.
had to go through some radiation treatments.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So,
You doing okay then? I mean,
yeah, doctor's happy.
well, good deal. Good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal. Well, you guys got any more questions or is it dinner time?
Yeah, it's dinner time.
Yes, sir. All right, guys. I will upload this roster tonight, so you'll be able to see it on your I'd say by 8:30 you'll see it on your pesticide license if you log in and see the course. All right.
All right.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Good
All
to
right.
see you, Eric.
All right.
Thank y'all.
you, Eric.
Y'all take
Appreciate
care.
your time, buddy.
Be good.
See y'all.
Okay.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.